That sucks.
Rubbermaids. Some of the best plant growing I ever did, I was doing just Rubbermaids in a closet. Not that kind of stuff.
Alright, there they go, right there.
I wasn't saying anything.
You were thinking, and I could hear you. The PowerPoint I kept very, very short, because this always turns out to be more questions than what I can fit into a PowerPoint presentation. This is just the basic start. I will do a second one for the way I do it. The consensus was, let's do what we can do with what we already have first. Just beginner. How you do it? 2.5 gallon tank or bigger, bare bottom. Series of high-powered screw-in compact fluorescents in plant fixtures. This is the cheap way. There's other means that you can do it. This is just the cheapest. You can buy these plant fixtures at Home Depot for $5 or $6 and get the 2 and 3 packs of the high wattage bulbs for like $6. And since you're only using them to do photo shoots, the bulbs will last forever. White or black background. You can use other colors. I prefer white or black for the way I do it. Sturdy table, countertop, put the whole thing on, and a digital camera, of course. Here we go. I get this on the forums a lot. The internet says to use a small tank when you're using photography of fish. Here's why you don't. Small tanks are not a good idea because the fish will never calm down enough to get their true colors. You ever notice whenever you buy a fish at a pet shop that's been in a little small tank, like a betta species, you get it home and it changes color? There you go. A stressed fish is not a truly colored fish. There's no room to move. You can't get good shots if you can't get the fish to move. If you want something in the background, driftwood, anything like that, it's not going to happen in a little bitty tiny tank. No room to crop your images. This is the most important reason why I don't do it. Setting it up. Put some distance between your tank and your background. Everyone asks me how I get my backgrounds to look that black and that white. That is because, and in the pictures I have on this PowerPoint, it's not really going to show you, but I have a minimum of a foot that I prefer to have 2 or 3 feet behind the tank where the background starts. You want that depth. You want the light to fall off before it ever hits the background, except for on a white background, and I'll show you why. Let me go back one here. Make sure you have plenty of light. That's where the compact fluorescents come in. Put your fish in well before you plan to start. I usually put them in, let them swim around, get used to the tank for 15 or 20 minutes before I ever start taking pictures. Wipe the front and the back of the tank off with a soft cloth. I use the microfiber cloths that you pick up at Walmart. You may not be able to see the smudges looking at the tank, but I guarantee you your digital camera will. This is using a white background. In this, it looks like there's not that much space between, but there is over a foot distance between the back of that tank and that wall where the pepper is tacked up. This is your basic setup. If you're using a white background, like in this example, you want to light the background. The reason for this is whenever you take the pictures, the background will automatically turn gray. Your digital camera cannot pick up white unless it is lit. Now, if you want to have a nice gradient, you would aim that second one up and it would be like this. Have the light facing up. As the light falls off, it goes to a nice shade of gray. This was not done in Photoshop. This is how you see it. This is how you get that right there. The white background is great for all fish, even white fish. If it is lit correctly, you will be able to see every fin, every ray, even on a white colored fish, even albino. If it's lit incorrectly, the fins will disappear in the shots. I try to get shots on both backgrounds of every fish I have to show that, but this is how you get them. And with the black background, you would lose the second light because you want it dark in the back. I usually bring that second light around, it's on the stand, I'll scoot the main one over, bring it around, have it up and down. Here's the part that I get asked the most about. For those of you that got to catch the Mo Devlin presentation, that's part of the reason why I started doing some fish photography of my own. It's not that I wasn't already shoots for a little different purpose than I shoot for. I shoot for more for the artistic side. Fish are very beautiful if you catch them in a flowing motion. It's amazing. I shoot them more as if you were diving and you saw them. That's where the black backgrounds come in. And then I do some more artistic stuff like the white background, and I even have some that I'm working with some different colored backgrounds and some objects brought into the mix. Every digital camera is going to have these settings. You may have to dig through to find them. Different ones have different settings for capturing, for getting each different shot. You'll need to play with your settings whenever you get started. Most cameras will have an automatic setting. If your flash can be overridden, use auto until you get the hang of your camera. If you can't override your flash, you're going to get the shots that you see online where the entire shot looks great except for the big glaring ball of light somewhere on the image. You don't want that. When I first started shooting aquariums, I could still shoot, and some of my pictures are online. I shot those with an on-camera flash, but you have to angle, and you have to get some distance between you and that shot. So it's hard. It makes the fish look out of focus. If you can't override your flash, then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to try another setting. One of the easiest ones for what I would consider, in the photography world, macro is anything closer than 3 feet. If you're closer than 3 feet to that subject, you can effectively use a macro setting. My camera never leaves manual. I haven't used auto in 10 years. But with a point and shoot, you're not going to get the same effect as you will with the DSLR. So play with it. Take a few shots. Set up a little tank and just leave it set up. And just every day play with it. See what your camera can do. Every camera has a limitation. You're not going to get the first shots that you get. Your first session, you're not going to get what you're looking for. I can pretty much guarantee that. Play with it. Play with the settings. Play with your light. Move the light around. Take lots and lots of shots. I take between 5 and 20 shots and end up only using 3. Usually I take around 10 shots and end up using 1. And that's not because the shots aren't in focus, it's because I'm looking for something very specific whenever I set up a shot. Depending on what style of shot you're wanting to get, you might need someone to step in. My wife usually comes and helps me. No matter how long that fish is in that tank, at some point it's going to find a corner that it likes. Once it finds that corner, it's going to want to stay in that corner. You don't want the corner of your tank in your shots. Have someone standing with you, just messing around. Get the fish swimming. Get those action shots. Predators are actually a little easy because once you mess around with the tank enough, they'll finally get mad at you and start flaring at you. And then they stand still. And I've gotten some in that they stop every couple of seconds and just flare for no reason whatsoever. So my photo tank, I actually have a mirror glued to the side of it. That's because primarily I shoot bettas, but I have found out with other species that having that mirror there actually makes the other species stop and take notice as well. Mid-water, they see themselves, they freeze, put on a little show, and they carry on. Once you have some shots, it's time to clean them up and crop them down. Digital photography, this is made rather simple. All you need is a basic processing program. You don't need a high-power, super expensive program for this. Just any program will actually work. You're going to be looking for different little water spots and stuff that you're going to miss. All the shots you see that online here in front of you, very minimal processing. I crop. There's always going to be some particulate in the water that shows up, or a little water spot. I remove those. You don't have to go out and spend $1,000 on Photoshop. If you're photoshopping your fish images, then it's not photography anymore. You've moved into a realm of just digital art. There's been some discussion on a few of the forums and stuff about people posting ads on Aquabid and a few other places where the fish look like they're photoshopped. And to a certain degree, they probably are. People are bumping the saturation up to bring the colors more forward. They're bumping up the colors and the reds. It's not really false advertising because if the colors are not there, Photoshop's not going to enhance it. But You want your shots to look as natural as possible. This fish in its cup isn't that blue. Whenever I get it in a tank and it calms down, it is that blue. Same with this. Everyone thinks I photoshopped in these purples and greens. That's all fish. Now these two were taken with a flash, and we'll cover that in another meeting. Most everyone's common PC at home will have a program built in to do crops, and some of them will even have they call it like a speck removal or salt and pepper filter. That will usually get rid of any little particulates in the water, because when you're using this high power of a light, every little thing in the water is going to show up. Cropping is one of the most important things when you're doing fish photography, in my opinion. Here's a before and after. This is not a shot I used for my collection, but it gives you a good example. You can see the seam, you can see the extra reflections. That's very unwanted. You can see up in the right-hand corner of the main, before it was crop shot, that there is that's probably not a smudge in the corner, that is more of a light glare from the lighting. You can see that there's a little dot on the back glass, this, that, and the other. All I did was crop it. Yeah, there's still some issues with this shot, because this was just a quick shot to give you guys an idea. But just cropping it and getting rid of that seam and that extra water level line changed the entire image. Now I would have an image that I could work with, and I could go in, I could remove the little water spots and little particulates off the surface and kind of clean this up a little bit and have a pretty decent little shot. If you're shooting at something small, there's no room to crop. We are having a discussion right now with some people. Kayla was in on it, I was in on it. There's a company that builds these little square bases out of 3/8" glass, and they're awesome. They really are. They will work great for getting images to post on Aquabid. Here's my fish. They'll work great at a show to show the winners. Again, I don't consider that photography. I consider that getting images to share with someone, saying, this is the crown tail that won. This is the crown tail I have for sale. Here's the half moon I have for sale. Those images, you could care less whether there's a big seam there, whether there's some light reflection. Another one, the members brought up a good point. I want to touch base on that. The thicker the glass, the more iron content is going to be in the glass. The more iron content that's going to be in the glass, the more of a green hue is going to be cast on anything on the other side of that glass. The thicker the glass, the more manufacturing flaws are going to be present in the glass. Thinner glass, very few flaws. Thick glass, they're not going to melt down this huge piece of thick glass because there's one run in it. They're going to leave it. Thin glass, it's cheap to make. If there's a huge run in that line, they'll break it, melt it down, and redo it. They don't care. I switched from using acrylic for the same reason. I went all glass all the time. I went and got one of the acrylic little photo squares. Again, great for getting Aquabid shots, great for getting shots. These are the fish that placed and where they placed and all that. For photography, it was horrible. Every shot, I could see every manufacturer flaw in that acrylic. Again, I'm using highlight. I'm using enough light to get one shot. I can grow these plants out in a day. It's like looking directly at the sun. So every little flaw in that acrylic stood out like a sore thumb. Not to mention, if you clean it, you're going to scratch it. Acrylic scratches on here, how easy you are. I switched total glass all the time. The thinner the glass, the better. I'm fixing to build another photo tank that's going to be a 10-gallon. Same type of setup to get pictures of larger species and to add some driftwood and some plants and stuff in there. But my goal is I want it bare bottom. I've had people request shots where it looks more natural, and I actually can get shots of fish in their species tanks too. But I wouldn't be able to break these tanks down to sterilize. If I order in some really expensive fish and I want to get some photos of it and they're imports, I don't want to risk having to mess with gravel and plants and driftwood and all choose to light from above and front. The reason is simple, where is the sun? It's always above you, always either in front or behind, but it's always above. Where are the lights in your home? Where are the lights in this room? Always from above. Lighting from above gives a more natural appearance. The sun is above, not below. Remember to experiment with your lightings and settings. Maybe amazed at what you can capture. This is where Mo Devlin and I do not agree. He lights every shot from above and below. I understand why he does it. I respect why he does it. He's also shooting fish that are over a foot long. I understand why he does it. I don't agree with it. To me, it makes the fish look photoshopped. I've never been diving and seen a fish swim by that its belly was lit up. I shoot for natural. My entire photography company is based on natural beauty. But again, if you're wanting to get something for art, hook up some extra clamp lights, have them coming in from the sides and from behind and below. I mean, light up the entire fish all the way around. It looked great as an art piece, but that's not what I do. All of these images, every single one of them are lit from above only, except for this one, and it's not lit from behind. I have a light shining at the white background to reflect back to bring the rays out of this fish. This fish actually in real life is all this is orange and blue, and then the body is actually just sort of a neutral tan color with black tips on each of the scales. This is one of my favorite shots. You can see where the light falls off of the image. Again, this is with a flash. The flash is actually set over here. So as it flashes, it's like the fish is actually looking up at the sun underwater. It drops off. Same with this one. Flash was set up directly above. I waited patiently until this specific male decided to get some air. When he did, I hit it. Another point to bring up, fish photography is all about patience. Mo Devlin spoke of it, I'm going to speak of it. I'm sure my wife gets irritated with me some nights because if I get in a new fish and I'm looking for a specific shot, I may sit in there in front of that 2.5 gallon tank with my camera for hours to get one shot. Fish are not people. You can't say, hey, turn over here and look up, chin down. You can't do that. You have to wait for that specific shot to happen. Another point, this being the beginner, if you are going to use screw-in compacts, turn them on 15 minutes before you start. Let them get good, hot, and bright, then move them in. And let your fish settle, the bright light going through the tank. All of mine I have lights on all of my setups, but nothing compared to what I'm shooting with. I shoot with strobes, they're very bright, they're very high powered. I get asked a lot about the color temperature. If you're not shooting in auto, or if you have a program on your computer, it doesn't matter what color temperature your lights are, because your computer can correct it or your camera can. I shoot everything in daylight, everything, daylight setting. People, fish, events, 5500K stays on both of my cameras 100% of the time because it captures the natural color better at sunlight level than it does at fluorescent level. If you tell your computer or your camera, I'm using screw-in fluorescent fixtures, it's automatically going to put a blue hue on everything trying to correct. If it overcorrects, if it sees that there's too much blue, let's say you're shooting a completely white fish, and you hit autocorrect on your computer, you want to bring it back to a natural hue, it's going to see the blue in the fish and autocorrect everything to orange because it's trying to make white. I shoot at 5500K on my computer and on my camera, and then I go in, and if I see there's a hue across the fish from the lighting, you can adjust that and make it neutral. You want to hit neutral every time. A lot of your cameras will try to correct that for you. They're not, the sensor in a digital camera that tells that camera what the color temperature is not at your focus point on the side of the camera. In this room, this is basically incandescent color. If I was to take a shot here on auto white balance, my camera is going to sense the orange tint in this and try to auto correct it So this entire room would have a blue hue to everything that's white. Everything that's not white would look great, but everything else is gonna have a blue tint because it's gonna try to auto-correct the orange glow of these lights. So you will have to play with the settings. Play with the settings on both your camera and your computer. If you're lucky enough to have a good program, not necessarily Photoshop. Photoshop isn't for processing images, Photoshop is for altering. When I say get you to processing, get Paint Shop Pro or there's 2 or 3 cheaper ones you can pick up at Walmart for like $25. They basically crop, do removal of specks. It's real basic stuff. Those are the better ones. They will have a feature for you to adjust the white balance. If you're shooting a white background, you can actually go into your processing. It'll have a dropper tool make sure the white balance. You pick a spot that's really white, usually up in the upper corner, and you click on it. It will automatically find that white. And the white balance goes off of white. Has nothing to do with the rest of the shot. It's trying to make white white. Again, you have to play with it. You'll find out what works and what doesn't. That's pretty much it for the basics. At the next one we do, we'll do a little bigger, a little better. Most everyone's not going to be able to do the pictures that I do because in these 2 shots alone, well actually these 3, but these 2 mainly, I've got probably close to $1,000 just in lighting. That's just in the light. That didn't include the $3,000 in the camera. Just the lighting. So you're not going to get the same exact results, but there are cheaper methods, and whenever I build a PowerPoint on that, I'll go over those cheaper methods of getting the flash. Flash is always going to give you a truer color than static lighting, always, because the flash is one color, and it's constant. There is no variation. It's not picking up color out of the air like the fluorescent or like an incandescent is. It's not reflecting the color back at you like static lighting would. But you can get some really good shots using static lighting if you place them correctly and you buy good high-power bulbs. You can never go too bright, ever. The brighter the better, but there is a cutoff. You don't want it to be so bright that it washes out all of the white. If the white in the fish seems to disappear, it's overexposed. If the black in the fish disappears, it's underexposed. You want to find that happy medium, but too much light is better than not enough, because in, like this image here, the flash is directly above this fish, okay? You can see, that's the strongest area of light. If it was overexposed, this whole section of the fish would basically be just a white blob. There would be no detail. You would be able to see the gill flaps. Everything would blur into the detail at the back. If it was underexposed, the eye and everything else would lose focus, and this would just be a dark blur. It's better to have it a little too bright and bring that level down in your processing than to have it too dark and bring it up. And here's why. Photography has nothing to do with what color you're shooting in, what camera you're shooting. Your camera could care less. Photography is about light and usage of that light. Without light, there is no shot. If it's overlit a little, you can bring it back. If it's underlit and you bring the levels up, it gets real grainy and you lose all of your focus points. I focus almost 100% on the eye, unless the fish is moving, and then in this case, I get as much as I can. I can go over some of the settings on your cameras, but most everyone would not hear a word I'm saying. That's where shooting in auto to start out is going to help you, because your camera is going to focus. It's going to automatically decide what settings it needs to be at. The problem with shooting auto is you have to continuously sit there and focus constantly, because it's going to change every time the fish moves. The way I shoot, I could literally set my camera up right there, have a remote, set it at manual focus, and just keep hitting click, and it will be the same focus every time. But that's with the flash, that's with the big camera. Your little small cameras, your point and shoots aren't gonna be able to do that. Another key point, since you're gonna use static lighting, if your camera has a manual setting, a lot of them do, some of them don't, depends on the manufacturer. Play with that manual setting, go in and bring up some of the different levels, bring down some of the different levels, take a couple of shots and look at it and see. All cameras focus better out of auto. All cameras. Doesn't matter what the manufacturer is, we can get in here and debate Nikon and Canon all day long. They're all built on the same exact principles of light. If you can take it out of auto, figure out which ones work best for your setup, you're gonna have crisper, more true color shots, because in auto, it's trying to focus on as much of the image as possible, where on a black background, you can care less what's back there. You want the fish in focus, nothing else. In auto, it's still gonna try to pick up stuff in the water, it's gonna try to focus deep instead of shallow, which is what you want. That's pretty much it. Any questions, bring them on.
Have you ever used LEDs for like your background?
I'll tell you why. The light is too pinpoint for what I shoot. I think it would make for some really cool effects in the background and in the water. But LEDs are very precise and pinpointed light, and in order to get one that has enough light to cover a broad spectrum of background or water surface, I can buy another flash. I think as LEDs come down in price, you'll start seeing more photographers using LEDs to light the subjects. I don't think you're gonna see it as much in backgrounds and stuff. I've looked at some of the tanks and stuff that have LEDs on them, and although the color is really nice and the current, the usage of electricity that they use is really nice, they're not bright. They're pinpoint bright. And if you have 1,000 of them, it looks great. Because I actually thought about some of my display tanks going LED, and it would actually make some of the photography a little easier if it's a nice broad spectrum. I kind of want to see how the LEDs pan out, because personally I think that's going to phase out of the aquarium industry. That's my opinion. LEDs have no color temperature whatsoever. They can say they do all they want, but it's still a digitized light. I think a lot of people that are trying them on their tanks, plants, are going to find out real quick that although the tank looks awesome, I don't think the growth rate's going to be there for the plants anymore. Like I said, that's my opinion. They may have some stuff working in the technology that'll change that. But I know as far as the photographic world goes, there are a few companies that are putting out LED static lights for photography, and it's ridiculously high. I mean, it's insane. And to get it bright enough to do any good, you have to have so many of them. It's kind of like when they came out with them on cars, for the tail lights. They look awesome, but if one burns out, you gotta replace the whole thing. So instead of having a $3 bulb, you've got a $300 light. So I doubt that I will ever use them for anything more than effects. You know, you can get some nice effects using LEDs, especially since they come in any color you want. You know, a shot like this, you know, granted I did this one in black and white for artistic value, but you know, the same shot in color with multiple LEDs around on the background, making the background all these different colors would be a really nice shot. But I don't know. I personally think the LED phase is gonna change dramatically or taper off in the aquarium world. I just don't feel like, you know, there's any, I don't know how to word it. For as bright as they are, there's no value to them.
They have a lot of